All right, 2018 Alfa Romeo Stelvio in the shop for brake service, the rear brakes in particular. I'm going to walk you through on how to perform the brake service, which is going to release the parking brake here through the multimedia center. So we're going to go down to settings, driver assistance, brake service, and we're going to hit yes. And great, it's telling us that it's not available. That is why I don't use this feature, because I don't really believe in it. It's a load of crap if you ask me. So we'll go ahead and exit the menu and I'll show you how I do things. So as you can see, the parking brake light is illuminated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step on the brake. I'm going to push the button down on the center console to release the parking brake, lift up on the brake pedal, and then turn the car off. If I open the door, the brake should not come back on. But the auto brake is set on this car, so just wanted to show you that's how we take the parking brake out even though it's in auto mode. Next, we will go ahead and remove the rear wheels and get started taking apart the brakes. All right, now that we got the wheel off, tools we're gonna need a 5mm hex for the bolt here securing the rotor. And we're gonna need a T25 to take off these two bolts here that hold the Alfa Romeo plaque or plate. Flathead screwdriver to take off this retaining spring. As we go around the back side of the brake assembly, we're gonna need 7mm. That's right, I said it. 7mm hex bolt, hex socket. And then we're gonna need the 5mm hex here, as well as, let's see if I can get back there, as well as right here for the parking brake assembly. So let's go ahead and get started by taking off the parking brake assembly, which we're going to disengage this clip here using a pocket screwdriver. Just going to wedge it here, pull the tab back, push the tab down, and slide back like that. Now that that's disengaged, we'll go ahead and take it off and then move on to the next step. Parking brake assembly has been removed. As you can see, it goes right here. Go ahead and disconnect your sensor for your brake pad wear indicator. That's inside of the brake pad itself. And we'll go ahead and remove these two T25s securing the plaque. And then we'll also remove this spring, as well as the two 7mm hexes that are on the backside here, which have these caps on them. So just pull these caps off. One goes here and then the other one goes on the bottom there. You'll see them. Take those off, take off the 7mm bolts, and then this will come off. All right, we got the caliper off. The guide pins, as I referred to them as bolts, we took those off, and we're going to lubricate these right here, the smooth part, so that there's no binding when we put this thing back together. So make sure you secure it. Don't let it just hang, because you don't want to stretch this rubber hose here. And next we're going to take off the caliper bracket. I'm going to get some controversy on this one, because I do it one of two different ways here. On the Giulia, sometimes it's harder to access with this E18. It is a E18. That's what it looks like. Sometimes you can't get this socket in here with the big 1/2-inch drive ratchet, because there's not going to be enough space clearance. So you could use that for the Stelvio, like I'm using. Or what you could do alternatively is use a, let's see if I can get it to focus here, a 12.14 millimeter wrench. It looks like this. This thing grabs everything. So either tool will work. The preferred tool obviously is the E18, but this will work if you do not have an E18. So let's take that off and move on. Next item up on the list is the rotor. We're gonna go ahead and take off this 5 millimeter hex here, and then hopefully it comes off. If not, we'll give it a couple good gentle smacks with the hammer on the outside edge here. Sorry, on this side, so that it kind of cocks it and makes it fall off the hub here. But if it doesn't come off the first time you smack it, you don't have to go crazy on this thing like you're gonna beat the crap out of it to death. Just give it a couple smacks. If it doesn't come off, put some penetrating lubricant right here on the seam here and just wait 5 minutes and then try it again. All right, so after I took off the 5 millimeter bolt, the old rotor came off pretty simple. I didn't have to smack it or anything. So we got the new rotor in. Now it's time for reassembly. First up, the caliper bracket. All right, before we go ahead and install the caliper bracket, just wanted to point out, you are gonna wanna put a little bit of lubricant on these points here where you can see where the pad rides. Just so that when you put the brand new pads on, it doesn't make any squealing or squeaking noises. This is the stuff that I use, anti-seize copper based. There are other products out there you can use. And then I also have the thread locker for the securing bolts here. As you can see, the factory ones have thread locker on them from the factory. They don't recommend that you reuse these bolts. But what you can do is you can reuse them and apply thread locker to the threads before you go ahead and reinstall them. That way, they're not stretch bolts. That way, once you do reinstall them, they're not going to go anywhere. And when you do put these back on to secure this, you're going to want to tighten them to 77 foot-pounds, or just tighten them until they're really, really tight. In other words, so. Yeah, let's go ahead and install that and move on to the next step. All right, so it's time to compress the piston. This is the whole reason why I took off the electric parking brake, is because when you twist this in, if the parking brake motor only can twist or turn in so far, or I should say turn one way or the other, and if you turn it past that, you'll end up damaging it and you'll end up having to replace the parking brake motor. So we're going to go ahead and twist this in and get it all the way in so that we can fit the new pads and get this job finished. So here's the caliper with the tool fitted, as you can see. All we're going to do is go ahead and twist this in. I'll go ahead and provide a link in the description for this tool so you can purchase it in order to be able to complete this job. So let me go ahead and compress this and we'll go ahead and put the pads on next. Now this should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway because not everyone would probably know this, but there are some pads that are directional. I've seen it on Maserati tons of times. I haven't seen it on Alfa, so I thought I'd just put it out there in case you get some aftermarket stuff, or I don't know. But pay attention. If they are directional, they'll have an arrow. Just make sure you put them on the right side. And then obviously the one with the wear sensor goes on the inside. The one without the wear sensor goes on the outside. Since these are factory pads, they're not directional. So let's just go ahead and throw them in. And I'm going to put the caliper on next. And seeing that we're going to put the caliper back on, the guide pins, you want to make sure that you put a little bit of lubricant on the guide pins. Doesn't have to be nothing too crazy. Just go ahead and put a small dab on each one and then go ahead and reassemble them. So we went ahead and installed the guide pins, which were those 7 millimeter bolts. And we tightened them down to 20 foot-pounds. So the caliper's on. Next we're gonna put the retaining spring and the cover plate, and we're gonna connect our sensor and go from there. All right, now that we got that installed, we're gonna go ahead and put in our parking brake motor. The two 5 millimeter hex bolts on the back side, right in there. We'll go ahead and put this in, and then we'll go over everything we did. All right, we got the parking brake reinstalled. We got the connector on. We went ahead and attached the connector for the brake pad wear sensor, and we are done. Like and subscribe. If you got any questions, please feel free to comment, and have fun, guys.